Time keeps on leaving and we keep on moving. When do we pass on our wisdom to the youth? My veteran story, lost arts discussions, fireside chats with a bourbon or two. It's time to hear the stories by military veterans. Get yourself ready. It's the Lost Arts Podcast. The Lost Arts with Andrew Cox.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Podcast. That podcast giving a voice to our veterans. On today's episode, we have Marine veteran Corbin Thorley on the program. I'm excited to hear his story. It's been a while since we caught up, so this should be a really outstanding time together. But if you're enjoying these podcasts as much as I'm enjoying them, go to thelostart.podbean.com. Click on that merchandise tab, get you a hat, get you a shirt, get you something cool, and help us get our veteran voices out for all to hear.
Really nervous when I was waiting out in the hallway for the ceremony to start. Mass Sergeant Van was back there, and I told him, this is what I normally do before I go do the message, and I haven't done that. And he's like, well, he's still in, isn't he?
Yeah.
Okay.
He picked up Master Guns too.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Master Guns. He gave me words of encouragement for sure. And said, like, it's going to be okay. And yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I went out there and I was so worried as I'm putting the sword into the hilt, like, am I going to get it in? Like, I got like that much space to put the sword in. And then I did, as Tibasar was still talking. He was the narrator. And I was like, I got this. Like, this is, I had like a few seconds to gather myself, fortunately, and not having to like rush anything to put the sword in the hilt. And then, I just delivered when I have a recording of it, and I went back afterwards. Yeah, I went back afterwards, and I'm so overly critical of myself. I felt like I went too fast, but just kind of stunned everybody. Like, holy moly, that happened. I delivered it, memorized. That was fun. That was really cool. Cool. But like I said, it was because I said, can I try this? And you're like, y'all are like, sure, why not? Like, go for it. It might not work, but let's see if it does. Yeah. I don't think I would have got that opportunity anywhere else. So, yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, it worked out.
It did.
That's the way you gotta try.
And I just thank y'all for letting me try.
So you guys did it. We didn't do anything. We just sat there and watched it all happen. So it's all good.
Were y'all worried? No, not even a little bit.
It was either going to go good or it wasn't, and it was it'll be all right. No, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, that's true.
You did fine though.
Yeah, that was a really cool moment. Earlier that year though, so that was October of 2019, I think. In May, I was voluntold to go become the unit's victim advocate. Yeah. And I was sent to school over in Miramar, which I don't know how Master Guns Van did that, like that commute. Holy moly. From San Diego to Camp Pendleton.
Yeah. It's horrible.
Yeah. I do not complain for traffic anymore. Never. Not out here in these farm roads of Elizabethtown, North Carolina. I've got nothing to complain about. But so I was sent to be a victim advocate for sexual assault victims. And as I said, I was kind of voluntold for that position. Had no idea that, it was going to start kind of light something that was going to carry on. But it was cool to get that credential. and to start working with some of our civilians through the Marine Corps Community Services, and have those opportunities to learn from them. And then we had the pandemic. We got through October, and then the pandemic came for 1st Marine Division Band, and that California in general, because I asked some of the community people here and on Fort Liberty. So I work in Fayetteville now, and it's Fort Liberty. It's not Fort Bragg anymore.
That's right.
Yeah. And they didn't shut down half the things that they did in California. Like, they didn't shut down near as much in North Carolina as they did in Cali. I'm very surprised, because when I was explaining to them, like, well, our beaches were closed and all of the restaurants were closed, and they just kind of shake their head at me like, no, like, it wasn't that bad over here. Gosh. And yeah.
It is California. They like to jump on the bandwagon with that type of stuff. So that's what it is.
They tried opening up the beaches during the pandemic on Memorial Day weekend. And they said, you can't throw out your beach towel and lay out and have a picnic. You have to keep moving. It's for water sports only. Like, if you're going to go for a jog, or if you're going to go swimming or surfing. They closed it the next day. Like, they let because people weren't following the rules, right? It was like,
of course not.
Mommy and Daddy punishing us. I'm sorry. California, I really had a blast from my house on base. I could also see the ocean. And so that was really cool. Again, kind of like where my military career started. I told myself I would never take that site for granted, and I didn't. Up until, everything was packed up. Then it was time for us to go. So my husband was ready to leave because, the churches were also shutting down too out there. And he did not agree with that at all. And that was something that was also regulated by, I think, the state of California too. There's a lot of political isms that I guess he didn't really agree with. So, it just made sense to leave during a pandemic and completely pull the rug out from under us, because at that point I had only had 12 years of military service. So it wasn't enough to retire. And while everybody's like, oh, well, you should go claim X, Y, and Z, and, just claim your medical stuff. There's not really a whole lot wrong with me. I'm still fully functioning, right? Like, and I know I should have, but it's like, I wanted to save, like, there are people who really need those services and those things. And I wasn't about to take more from that Uncle Sam and deal with the headache of waiting. Right.
Hey, I'm going to put a plug in.
Sure.
So the VA and those benefits are there for you. Yeah. So it doesn't matter if anything is there. Let them determine if it's there. They're the experts. Let them do their thing. But you earn that. That's something that you earned. And everybody in the military earned it. Not everybody gets 100%. Not everybody gets 75%. Whatever. But whatever it is that you end up with, that is something that I say you earn. But it's something that you did in your lifetime that is set aside for you if you need it. And let them determine. They may say no. They may come back and say, no, there's nothing there. Okay, it is what it is. But if there is something there, it is something you deserve. So for me, one, being a drummer and knowing, carrying heavy things on a regular basis, and it's one of many reasons that my back is not 100%. And I know that all drummers had to deal with that. So that's at least one thing.
It's true. Very true. No, I do.
And that's my plug. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
Well, that's okay.
interrupt you, but
That is super important. I just I think also the timing with everything and how fast my EAS or my end of service was approaching. Because I did want to try to stay in and maybe try to go to the East Coast. My mother was also very adamant because 12 years and not staying in 8 more, like who would do that, right? Why wouldn't you just stay in 8 more years and try, just try to retire, especially for my family. But that drum set was my definitely hindering because it came time for me to go back to the schoolhouse, for me to go to my advanced course, and I couldn't do it. And it was particularly hard with a toddler. And then let's see, Caden was 5. My son was 5 or 6 at the time. And then Matthew at the time wanted to become a Navy chaplain. So there was a lot of things going on in his life. So me finding time to practice and get behind a drum set to try to improve that ability became less and less and less, especially, all of the demands and rigors of our job as it was, because there was a pandemic, it did not stop us from our day-to-day operations. And I'm so thankful for that. Because it was very fulfilling. We were doing field exercises too, just to say we could be outdoors, and, not necessarily be where all the COVID was, or potentially was. So that was a lot of fun, getting to spend time in the mountains, hiking around, but I wasn't able to practice. So I wasn't able to get the score that I needed to go back to the advanced course. So it was like, I could try to spend time behind a drum set, but it wasn't looking feasible for me. So it was a oh shit moment for me, part of my language. But because I had no idea what I was going to do when I got out.
yeah,
And that was so scary because there were so many rugs, and I had plenty of people who were leaving the service before me that also guided me through like my VA claims and things like that. But it became a matter of how were we going to survive?
Yeah.
And that was scary, really scary.
Yeah. As you we're moving on, right? And you're thinking about things. It's obviously a scary time. We're in a pandemic. There's all kinds of unknowns. How did you and your husband, your family, how did you guys manage that?
How do we manage that? One day at a time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And that was difficult because I was trying to put resumes out there. I really wanted a job with the government, but they make it difficult for that kind of transition to happen. You have to make sure all of your forms are in order, which this is my plug. If anybody needs help navigating USA jobs or your resume, like I will help you. I've got that system like locked down because I've figured it out now. But we wanted to try to get jobs where our families were. So Western North Carolina in the mountains, which wouldn't help me on the government side, or around San Antonio, which there's several bases. During a pandemic, with my husband trying to find a job at a church was particularly difficult. Because church, nobody was hiring. So then it was, where our families were to, okay, just start putting resumes out, like see who out there is hiring, and we're going to have to make something work. So Fayetteville, North Carolina, there was a Presbyterian church who was hiring a youth pastor, an associate pastor. And my husband just decided to put his resume out there because we knew it was going to kind of be dependent on where he was, where I would put my resume in next. And so he emailed or called, and they responded back to him and said, like, this is while we were in California. They said, we would love to have you out and meet you and interview you. He did an online interview. So I started putting in all the jobs on the band formerly known as Fort Bragg, Fort Liberty, trying to work as, I think I did maybe admin, maybe an administrative assistant. And then as a victim advocate too, I had some experience with that, and that credential would transfer over anywhere in the Department of Defense. So I was trying to put out for that, but I kept getting rejection after rejection after rejection. Like, I was so used to being told no at that point. Matthew ended up getting the job. And so then we knew where we were going. And I did not have a job lined up. I was leaving in October. Matthew took the kids in August, mid-August, so that they could start school out there. And I was just going to have to, was settling on me having to work at like Cookout or somewhere in the mall, and we were going to put this together. I did not have my degree at the time. It was frightening. But then my husband saw it was just like a general job search for Fayetteville, that the crisis center of Cumberland County, that's where Fayetteville's in, they were hiring an advocate for domestic violence. And it was kind of right up my alley of things that I was doing at the time, and how like the kind of help and services that I would give to victims of sexual assault. So I put my resume out there, and I got called back. I'm very thankful to my leadership for allowing me to attend that job interview, because it was a few days later that they didn't offer me the domestic violence position, but they offered me a position in cold case victim advocacy, which was pretty cool, because I got to kind of research the different technology advances in like that law enforcement investigations have put towards finding serial rapists, essentially. Yeah. And I got to be the person I had to be the person that would call the victim after their case, they thought their case was forgotten about, and say, hey, your case, there's been a match. Law enforcement would like to sit down with you to see if you would like to go further with your case. And I have to attribute all those communication skills to the last, 12 years of being able to call and type emails and talk to people and talk to difficult people and get hung up on sometimes, right? But I would have to say towards the end of my military career, when I was working with victims of sexual assault, and to kind of parallel it with these musicians or just really any kind of military personnel or Marine that I would come across, that they would just be so efficient and effective at their jobs that it was just like watching like a swan, right? Just they look so graceful at everything that they did, and it just came so naturally to them. Those musicians that could get in there and just immediately play to a level of, master sergeant or master guns and not have to worry about it at all.
Yeah.
I always wondered what that felt like what that felt like to be so skilled at something that it just comes so naturally to you. And I think towards the end, like when I started working in victim advocacy, I started to see that. And when like Miss Wire told me, don't turn that switch off. Don't be that switch on and off. Be that same person always. That's what started to come so naturally and efficiently and effectively to me that, I get asked like, how do you not stay burnt out? You got to watch it. And I haven't yet, right? I've been doing this for 5 or 6 years now. And doing the cold case thing. So got out of the military, and started working at the crisis center. That leadership that I had there were much like you, Master Guns Van and Miss Wire, just go, right? It's okay if you make mistakes. I was really scared to make mistakes here because, then you're dealing with victims' livelihoods and, but they just had this immense amount of trust. So it really pushed me to learn everything I could about talking to victims, and learning about our technology and what our investigators are doing, what our legal and our justice system is doing. So it opened up so many doors for me. I got to collect data on some bills that we took to the state as far as how we prosecute those who are convicted. I also got to work with some of the victims of the state's, historically, they're the worst serial rapists that the state's ever seen. Yeah. And then, I also got to work with domestic violence and human trafficking too. So
that is, you think about your career, your time in the military leading up to that point, right? And it's almost as if everything was preparing you for it.
It was absolutely, without a doubt.
I always think of, God's got a plan, and you just got to stick it out and write it until you finally get there. And I think He had a plan for you and put everything in your path that's helped you lead up to where you are now.
It definitely has, just all of the experiences that I encountered. And then, all the experience that I encountered in the military definitely strengthened me. And like you said, I definitely think it wasn't by accident. And it all lined up perfectly the way that it was supposed to. And we just, my husband doesn't like hearing me say like, we got really lucky, right? And I apologize if y'all can hear these church bells in the background. I'm in my husband's office. Okay, good.
No, I can't hear it at all.
6 o'clock or just after 6. So every experience, with my family, with professionally, laid such a strong foundation for me to be able to work in the field that I'm in. I haven't finished my degree yet, and I didn't need to. And then when I started working at the crisis center, I did all of just immerse myself in all that research on how to talk to victims about our mental health, and then about all the services that are available to people, especially for the state of North Carolina. I just really did that. But working for the military had been a dream of mine. So I started applying on USA Jobs again. That website is such a beast. But anyway, my application finally made it through to work with the victims of sexual harassment and sexual assault for the Army on Fort Liberty. And their structure is a little bit different because civilians in the Marine Corps, when they work with sexual assault, they kind of work with everybody. But in the Army, you get assigned to a brigade, and you are that commander's, you're that colonel's kind of go-to person as far as how you help that person. You help victims, and then you're the go-between between them and everything that victim goes through. It's a long journey, I guess you could say, but I interviewed with the colonel that we had at the time, and he, whatever reason, he picked me. That was a wild interview too. My computer wasn't working. They wanted to do like a Zoom interview, but I couldn't figure it out. So I had to dial in. So they didn't even see my face, and he still hired me. Thank goodness. Right. Yeah. But,
well, your phone skills.
Yes. Yeah. At that point. Yeah. After, working on the crisis hotline and thing, I'm a pro at talking to people on the phone. But the brigade that I work for now is the 108th Air Defense Artillery Brigade, and they deploy a lot. So making sure that they are connected to the services that they need to have a good environment, a good work culture, and try to be the face of that and foster that. It's kind of tough at times because anytime I'm seen anywhere, everybody thinks it's for something bad. Yeah. So that's been a difficult thing to break. Like either I'm there for something bad or I'm there to do training because everybody needs their annual training. So I do that too. And it's been cool to see when I was working at the crisis center to see the changes that they were going to make in the Department of Defense for sexual assault victims. Because I don't know if you heard of the Vanessa Guillen incident that happened. I think that was in the summer of 2020. And they had that independent review committee that came and wrote like a 54-page review. And there were like 90 actions that the National Defense Association, NDA, wanted to happen across the Department of Defense. And I could talk about this forever. I'm sorry. So if I'm boring you,
no, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
So getting to be on the sidelines of history as all these changes happen for our victims, for victims of sexual assault, sexual harassment, for the better. Some of them, we're kind of building this plane as it flies across the Department of Defense right now. But it's really cool to see how this is going to shape the future of how our leaders treat other victims of sexual assault and sexual harassment. So,
wow, that's really cool. And do you feel that things are moving in a positive direction when it comes to all that?
Yes, definitely do. From what I've seen from 10 years ago and from when I was an advocate in the military in 2019, even now, the steps that we're taking, it's good to see those changes for sure. They're much needed. I know some people will say, that they don't see it yet and it's not going to be good enough. Well, it's never going to be good enough if you don't let us try, right? That's been like the whole theme. If you don't let them try. So I think once people allow that and allow, the past to kind of heal, it is going to be a lot better system.
Wow. That's absolutely incredible journey to where you are now. And if you were going to, 'cause you obviously know a lot about this subject, sexual harassment, sexual assault, doing the classes and all those types of things, what advice would you have to a young serviceman or woman that may have had an that? What advice you give them?
If they had a situation like that?
Yeah, something happened, whether it was them or somebody they know.
They're not alone. And to find somebody that they that they confide in, that they can talk to, for sure. And I mean, there's no timeline to healing. And I think that within the last 10 to 15 years has definitely, what we know about mental health has changed so much. You know, PTSD and mental health issues used to only be those for those who were seen in combat, right? But now we know that that's not really the case, that children, go through traumatic experiences, and families, couples, but there's no set timeline. And finding those people, surrounding yourself with people who are there to empower you, not necessarily coddle you, right? But to empower you for your own journey of healing. Those are the kind of people that you can find and lean on. And that's not just for sexual assault. That's also for for witnessing that suicide so early on. I think it was important that I had people who really empowered me, or we empowered each other to get through those times. Not to sit there and have us wallow in them. I mean, although that time is definitely needed, but to heal.
That's good advice. I like it.
Thank you.
Yeah. I found there's a lot, and it was probably always there, I'll be honest with you, but there's a lot of young individuals joining the military. Talk about PTSD, traumatic events, stuff like that. It doesn't have to just be, I was in combat. Because I've seen so many come in the military with things that have happened prior to the military, and they really struggled, and it impacts their current situation of what they're doing in the military. And I see that, or I used to no longer in, but I've seen that in the past, and it's been a huge thing in my mind, and I think that we have gotten better, at least from what I've seen. We've gotten better at identifying and helping those individuals get treatment, or either at least having somebody to talk to, like utilizing the chaplains and utilizing, victim advocates, all those types of things to be able to get everyone the help they need. So from what I've seen, I think it's been moving in a positive direction. I'm sure that's just something I saw for the last 3 years.
No, absolutely. And just what we know about neurology and trauma in the last 5 years, 7 years in general is different, in that, like, the information that we know, and how in turn how we treat people, right? Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think it's important that we have, and it's good that we have a society now that kind of recognizes it and goes and gets help, and just doesn't resort to whatever coping mechanism they think they need. I think that is so important, to have that realization, and to go seek help. And I also have to stress this too, for those who might find themselves in a similar situation and decide to go seek help. If you find that something is working, I have to use this as an example, for like couples counseling. If something's working and you go to one session and it feels good, and you say, okay, I'm good, I'm fine, we don't need to go back anymore. That's not how that works. Like, if you start eating healthy, you don't fall off. I mean, you're going to fall off, obviously, but you don't stop eating healthy and say, all right, I've arrived, I'm not going to eat healthy anymore, I've done it. You have to continue to work at it, because you'll figure out what works, and then you'll figure out what change you need to make in order for it to work. But yeah, that's my plug for mental health.
I like it. Yeah, that's good. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on and telling your story. I've had a good time listening to you, and just enjoying your story all the way across. So this is your opportunity right now to say whatever you want to do. You want to do shout outs, you want to just whatever it is that you want to say right now is your opportunity.
Ooh. Okay, shout outs. Let's see. Well, I mean, you're probably the one of the big people to do my shout out to, just to thank you, right?
Thank you.
I know I've kind of done that throughout this little podcast through our time together. But just, the people in the 1st Marine Division, between the years, 2017 to 2020, that was a fantastic time. It was a fantastic time for growth, and just, being able to have those opportunities. That was huge. And then to, everybody else that I've served with, I've just had a phenomenal time, phenomenal learning experience, that really just paved every single step of the way of where I am now. I'm a pastor's wife as well as a mother and an advocate, and helping military service members. So that's been interesting, an interesting mix, having been a Marine and being in the South too. If y'all ever feel the need to look me up, please do on Facebook. If y'all need help with resumes or anything, I will say, and I think it's okay to say this, but every time my resume has made it to someone's desk, I've gotten the interview, if that's anything to say. So I'm an open book when it comes to that stuff, because that it's so important. And you don't, like, as far as the verbiage and everything, I would be happy to help any service member that might need that, or, like I said, navigating USA jobs, I can do that too. But as far as any other shout outs, just enjoy your time, enjoy your time in the military. If there's people, service members that are listening to this, and then for veterans, being Memorial Day weekend coming up, but to our veterans too, thank you all so much for your service. And I know they probably hear that all the time. Truly. The small community that I live in right now, it means a lot to them. Like, the military means so much to them. And it's just the pride of having served before and having served with so many wonderful people.
Awesome. Hey, I like it. Hey, I got to tell you, from me to you, I'm proud of you. I'm excited to see where you are, you and your family, and your guys doing wonderful things. And you're continuing to serve the country and serve everybody. So thanks for doing what you're doing. It's incredible to see where you are, and I'm super proud. So
thank you.
Just know that. All right. With that, thanks for being on here. Much appreciated. To all the listeners out there, if you're struggling and need some help, there's always a way to reach out. The VA has some great opportunities. You can dial 988, press option 1. You can also text, oh man, I messed it up, 939-288. You can text 939-288. You can also go to veteranscrisisline.net, click on that chat icon. Any of those options are going to get you to somebody that's going to be able to help you out. But one veteran life loss is one too many. I care about you. Corbin cares about you. The whole veteran community cares about you. So please reach out first. Corbin, one last time, thanks for coming on.
Thank
to
you.
all the listeners out there, stay motivated, change your socks.